Eldrin a while ago introduced me as somebody who runs two factories. That almost never happened. Why? Because 10 years ago, my boss, the vice president of our packaging division, told me, Nelson, you're now into sales, but you're also chemical engineer. I want you to handle one of our factories. And I was thinking, okay. I was thinking, what if I bomb? What if I suck? What if the people there do not like me? What if I cannot solve the technical problems? What if I fail to deliver? And so I told him, boss, I'll get back to you. And then from time to time for the next 2 weeks, that's all what I told him. Boss, I'm still thinking about it. I'll get back to you. Then, fortunately, at the time, I was active with Toastmasters. And I had a mentor who encouraged me and trained me how to run a club. He was our club president. I was his second command. And together, we were able to achieve club targets that boosted my confidence. And then at one point, when I shared with Ryan, my mentor, I told him about the situation, this offer to run a factory, and I was not confident in running this factory. And he told me something insightful. Nelson, if you can run our Toastmasters Club, you can run any factory. Wow. Because of that mindset change, I said to my boss, yes, I'll accept the challenge. And thankfully, I did because after 2 to 3 years, I had my second factory. And last month, we were able to enjoy this particular celebration. It was our 25th anniversary. And all because I had to overcome my fear, have a mindset change, and take up the challenge. And this will be how it's done, usually about fear. First of all, fear is not necessarily bad. Fear can be healthy. I'm afraid of COVID, but that doesn't mean I'm a coward. So fear can be helpful and useful. The thing is that even when the thing you fear about is not there, you still experience fear. How many of you dread, let's say, discussing some difficult topic with somebody, your boss or a peer, or you're about to embark on a new project, maybe start a business. The thing is not yet happened, yet already you're having your butterflies in your tummy. The other one is that fear can sabotage your career growth. It almost sabotaged mine. And our objective today is to help you overcome that fear because who knows, overcoming that fear will allow you to seize the next opportunity that spells success in your workplace. So let's have a summary, an overview of today's topic, tapping your inner courage. First is to defang the fear. Second is to develop action plans. Third is to depend on a higher power. And you'll notice the three directions. Inward, defang your fear. Outward, develop action plans. And then upwards, depend on a higher power. Let's look at them one by one. First of all, defang the fear. What do I mean by that? Think of fear like an iceberg. Now, we know that an iceberg, 10% of that is above the water. That's what we see. That's the fear. That's the fear that you're aware of. That's the fear that you're feeling. What many people may not be aware of is the 90% below the surface we're in. Why is there fear there? What is the part of the fear? What hold does the fear have on you? And that's why the coaching conversation is this. What makes the fear of ridicule, rejection, failure, whatever it is, what makes that fear fearful for you? Because many times when we try to tackle the fear, we're having a sort of vague definition of what we're afraid of. Crystallize the fear, have something to chew on, we'll be able to attack it better. Remember, you cannot fight an enemy you cannot define. So after finding out what makes the fear fearful for you, I have 3 methods how to go about it. Number 1, the true, not true method. For example, I'm afraid of rejection. So what makes rejection fearful for you? Well, for example, the answer is, To be rejected means that I am, put a negative there. It means that I am no good, useless, incompetent, stupid, whatever it is. Now, if you have that kind of answer, then the challenge is this. What is true about that negative statement? What is not true about that negative statement? For example, what makes rejection fearful for you? Well, to be rejected means that I'm worthless, I'm useless. Then you may want to ask those two questions. What is true about that? Well, maybe it's because I lack certain skills. Okay, so you lack certain skills. Does that make you a failure? No. Therefore, can you tackle that kind of fear? Yes, because I can improve my skill. On the other hand, if I say that to be rejected means that I am a failure, useless, what is not true about that? I'm not really useless. I have a lot of skills I'm proud of. And other people affirm I have this skill, that talent, that particular endeavor, accomplishment. And so you notice now how we balance the true, not true method. Challenge your fear. What is true about that fear? What is not true about that fear? And then your mindset will follow. Hey, the fear is not as bad as I thought. And therefore, I can move on with courage. The second way we can tackle about that fear is this. It's the reframe method. You know what it means. I see something from a different point of view. For example, I get this a lot. I'm afraid of public speaking. Okay. So what makes public speaking fearful for you? I may make mistakes and I look like a total idiot. Okay. So how can you turn it into a positive? You know, I can learn from my mistakes and become a better speaker next time. Notice the reframing. Instead of a activity to be dreaded, it's an activity to be relished because it gives you opportunity to grow. By the way, this can also be a true, not true exercise. I'm afraid of public speaking. What makes public speaking fearful for you? I'm afraid of looking like a fool, an idiot. Is that necessarily true? What is true, not true? You know, if I make a mistake, that doesn't mean that I'm stupid. I just made a mistake. I'm not a fool. And so that's where I can have my overcoming of my fear of public speaking. One more round. The worst case method. Have you ever noticed that sometimes when we have our fear, we go into catastrophic thinking? Type letter A if you agree. We tend to think of the worst case scenario. We're doomed. It's going to be all downhill, the end of the world. Okay, so if you agree with that, type letter A because we're going to talk about how do we do that. For example, I'm afraid of being jobless. What makes being jobless fearful for you? Well, I'm the breadwinner. I will not be able to support my loved ones. So what's the worst that can happen? Well, we will all starve to death. From here, you can already see how ludicrous it is. What are the chances that that will happen? You know, we've been through tough times before, and yet we're still here. We still eat 3 square meals a day. And there are people helping us. And if I become jobless, I do believe I can get another job soon. There you go. And the good news, by the way, about the worst case scenario is this. Somebody made a study, and guys, this is great news for us. According to Huffington Post, 85% of what we worry about never happens. Let me repeat. 85% of what we worry about never happens. 500 years ago, a French philosopher named Michel de Montaigne said this, my life has been filled with terrible misfortune, most of which never happened. And by the way, the article will go on to say that in the 15 remaining percent, they said that when the thing they feared happened, it was not as bad as they thought. And they're able to cope with it better than they thought. So that gives you an idea how to look at your worry. It's probably not going to happen in the first place. And if it does, you're more than enough to tackle it. So how do you tackle it? That's the second part about tapping your inner courage. It is to develop action plans. If you're afraid of something, do something about it. It's basically like that. And so there are three ways. One, if you are facing something to be afraid of, making a report or presentation, calling on a customer, talking to a difficult person, starting a business, plan ahead. For example, if you're fearing failure, plan ahead, plan proactively. And that's where you now have your thinking, okay, what can I do to reduce the failure, to reduce the risk of failure? I'll give you an example later. Let's look at the second one. It's to predict what can go wrong. Many times when we are afraid, we're anxious with this vague notion, something will go wrong somewhere. Murphy's Law is still around. But if you're able to pinpoint what can go wrong, specify it, name it, you'll be able to attack it furthermore, and thus you'll be able to prepare for contingencies. Have your plan B. If needed, a plan C, even a plan D. When you do that, you'll be able to reduce your fear. Here's my example. One of the things that I really sometimes am afraid of is asking for money. It's asking for capex approval. Remember, I run 2 factories, and many times I have to ask upper management for several millions of pesos to buy this machine, to have this approved for this particular certification. I need money, guys. And if the economy is down, if the cash position of the company is not so good, it's going to be a tough sell. So what do I do to overcome that fear? Let's go to the template. First is to plan proactively. Therefore, when I make my presentation, I give careful thought. I will review it. I'll organize my presentation well. It's better than slapping a presentation just like that and then wing it. So plan proactively. I'll organize what I'll be saying. And part of it is, what data would the approvers need? What would it take to convince them? What's the data? What will be the numbers? What will be the graph that showed them, yes, we need this? And last but not least, I have to plan ahead what's in for them. Because many times they will say, okay, Nelson, if I give you so and so million pesos, what's in it for us? When will we get our money back? What will be the cost benefit analysis? When I have that, I'll be able to explain further and convincingly, and my fear would go down. Next is to predict what can go wrong. And this is where the curveballs lie. And people who do presentations will know the danger. Tough questions. People who grill you and they, okay, what am I going to say? And so the strategy might is to over-prepare. Over-prepare, over-prepare, over-prepare works for me. And I have at least 3 ways. One, I would rehearse and role play. You guys, okay, my core group, pretend that you're the senior executives. Give me a tough time. Throw me all those hard questions. You pretend to be the tightwads and let me know what will be objections. I'll try to think what will be the counter argument. The other one, and this is a strategy. One of the senior management is my boss. He's the guy who gave me the 2 factories. So I would also present, boss, since you are part of that crowd, you already know how your colleagues think. Can I give you this presentation and let me know? And he will give me feedback. Nelson, don't say this instead. No, Nelson, you reward it this way. You call it asset protection, cost avoidance. Let's go with music for those ears. Oh, great, great. I'm going to do it. And last but not least, I'm going to prepare extra data because I'd rather have so much data rather than too little data. But I'm going to put that extra data in an appendix so that when they would challenge my data, I'll put in the other supporting backup data. And when I have that, I have a lot of ammunition and I go to war with conflicts because I have plenty of bullets. And you'll notice, by the way, I can do the true, not true. What helped me in terms of presenting to senior management, especially if they're, let's say, not so keen to spend, before I would say, they're out there to get me. They're out there to give me a hard time. They want to see me squirm. But later I had insight. No, wait. I'm being unfair to them. I have to see them as people who have the company's best interest at heart. They want to know the merits of my proposal. They are just doing their job. When I have that mindset, the personal threats disappeared. And then I'm able to be cooperate with them. Okay, we're after the good of the company. This is what we need. If they say yes, good. The worst case is, what if I do not have the answer to the question? So what? Then it's not the end of the world. I'm not going to be fired or anything. They will certainly not laugh at me. So I will accept this worst case scenario. What if they ask me a question which I can answer? Then I'll go find the answer and get back to them. Notice the sting of the fear will be removed. Last but not least, prepare for contingencies. What if my capex really denied? So I'm not going to be worried because at the back of my mind, okay, instead of saying it's the end of the road, can I find an alternative? True story, I had a proposal for 10 million pesos for extensive rehab of a machine. My boss, remember the feedback, said, no, they'll never fly because he just showed me the payback period is so long. Can you do something else? I talked with my operations people, and yes, we believe we can have a workaround. We do an alternative equipping of our factory. It's going to be much less. We're just computing what the cost would be. Guess what? That fear of having not the rehab that we wanted is gone because now we can find other ways. Or perhaps it was turned down, and then I can ask a second session. And usually the senior executive will say, okay, but come back to us with this, this, this. We want that, that, that. And therefore, yeah, I'll give it to them. And of course, during that time, I'll be learning, what can I do to be more persuasive next time? Is it my pacing? Is it that I was drowning in with so much numbers? Was I being too technical? And there are people who are laymen. So that's the thing that I have to learn. And therefore, the next round of CAPEX approval time, I should have less fear. Last but not least, depend on a higher power. Depend on a higher power. Have you ever heard this expression? The best way to predict the future is to create it. But when you think about it, we really cannot create the future because we really cannot control our circumstances. Like this guy, Calvin, in the cartoon. He thinks he's in control. He's the master of the fate of those two flowers. And then what happens is that the higher power pours in rain. And that gives you the clue by which, yeah, you may want to do something daring, something audacious. Let's say start a business, but you face this, VUCA. The fact that we have this kind of a acronym shows you we acknowledge the reality. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. If you were to start a business, go freelancing, or open a new restaurant or something, you may see that you want to create a bright, successful future for you, something lucrative, something enjoyable, but you really cannot control the economy. You really cannot control costs. You really cannot control your competitors. And of course, you can't really control your clients. When that happens, what do you do? And here comes one of the things which I love, this quotation. I don't know what the future will hold, but I know who holds the future. We depend on a higher power. Some of you may say, we count on fate or destiny or this moral law in the universe. For me, I've subscribed to the Christian faith that we have a personal God, a God not only omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, but a God who cares. And because we believe in a God who cares, I love this particular verse. Casting all your care upon him, for he cares for you. And that's already, that alone will give me peace. Yeah, I may be afraid. Yeah, things may get tough. Yeah, I cannot control my future. But I know the God who controls my future cares for me. True story, I know of a friend. He is a sales executive, and his role is to really, bring home the bacon to his factory, different factory, by the way. And he's worried all the time because competition is tough. And he would tell me, Nelson, I would all go to those client calls, and we have to go through price negotiations, all bloody and all that. We may have quality issues, and I get myself so stressed. I did my part. I have sleepless nights. But you know what, Nelson? At one point, when I read this verse, I prayed to God, Lord, I did my best. I'm going to sleep because staying awake worrying will not work. But you, O Lord, will never sleep. And while I'm sleeping, I know you're taking good care of me. And so I'm at rest. The fear is gone. And by the way, because he's less stressed, he's less fearful, he's more relaxed, he can bag more deals. And so what happens? The opposite of fear is not courage, it is faith. It is faith that you depend on a good God who will take care of you. When he showed his care for us at the cross, and when he showed it to us that far, will he not care for us in our day-to-day, in our challenges, despite our fears and failures? And that's where we can rest. And as we put ourselves in the hands of the Good Shepherd, the safest place in all the universe, we can say with the psalmist, I will fear no evil. Let's recap. Tapping your inner courage will take 3 steps. 1, define your fear. Find out exactly why is that fearful for you and neutralize it. Second, it's to develop action plans where you do something rather than just doing in your fear. Last but not least, depend on a higher power, depend on God, for He's good and merciful. It's inward, outward, and upward. Thank you very much. You've been such a gracious audience. And then we're going to have this particular, if you want more, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's at Nelson TD. My past talks with LJMB, all of them are in this particular channel. So if you want more, if you like this one, you can get the other one through this channel. Subscribe and also share. And also, let's continue the conversation. For more resources, follow me at LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, as I mentioned. You can contact me also through nelsontd.com at gmail.com and visit my website, nelsontd.com.